Weird and wild, like another episode of the Indie-credible podcast. Hello, everyone.
I almost thought of tequila as I didn't even change shirts from the last episode. Like we recorded them back to back. I would never tell you.
I had this jacket on the whole time, so I don't know what you're talking about. This is another episode of the Indie-credible podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Scullion, and joined with me is Jeff.
Me, this guy, the guy with all the guy stuff, the guy. And as we mentioned last episode, appreciate everybody supporting on Patreon. It's been crazy, and all the different feedback that we consistently get across like our indie gaming gems, indie credible Facebook page, the Discord's been cool.
Yeah, and we have, what is this, a 5-star rating on Spotify?
Yeah, so every once in a while I look around as I'm uploading podcast episodes, and we're getting some different reviews. So like you'll see like reviews coming in, and like Apple Podcasts will get stuff for, and now so we got us 5-star ratings. Somebody like digged us, gave us a thumbs up on Spotify. None doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I would like to do like a call to action that, hey, listeners, make sure you give us a quick rating. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just because the giving us 5-star ratings improves the searchability of the podcast. So more people will be able to find us and listen and enjoy this indie gaming content.
And that's what we want to do on this show. We want to show as many games off as we possibly can and just make everyone's backlog hurt and pain.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Hurt and pain.
Hurting in pain. Because I mean, yeah, every episode we have like some games that we've been playing. I unfortunately haven't been playing too much. I haven't been playing, but we also have Over the Horizon, which is a segment where we talk about games that we may have seen on Steam that we're like, huh, this might look kind of cool. We talk about it, and any of the times that we have these games that we talk about, if you've played it, folks, be sure to leave a comment below and tell us what you think. Tell us how close we are, because a lot of these are just like trailer impressions. Like we just watch the trailer, maybe read the description, and that's it.
And like we have them in our wish list. We've already or bought and downloaded them, and we're ready to play them. But this is like before that, so you get like a little preview of what our thoughts are, and if we're excited and how excited we are to play them. And every game we're adding, we're already excited. But as a good segue, some of the games that I've been adding over the years, because I've been doing this the gathering, for like 5 years now. I didn't just start doing this with the indie credibles and the indie gaming gems. Like I have been gathering indie games for years now. And the initial thing is I was gathering games that I thought would be cool to publish physically for like Nintendo Switch and PlayStation, as I was the CEO of Premium. And I'm like, all right, let me get some cool ass games. I'll find a few. I'm sure I'll find a couple, and that'll be great. I had no idea that I had tens of thousands of games that I would find that are freaking awesome to go. So basically what happened was that eventually, like, I was like, all right, cool. So all these games, I get to figure out what to do with them. I've been documenting them and essentially adding them all to my Steam Deck. And when my Steam Deck went from 200 to 300 to over 1,000 indie games that I owned, I'm like, all right. So I had the idea of creating the Indie Gaming Gems book as a sequel to my Hidden Gaming Gems. And then I decided to do a channel to highlight those, to kind of like, build some momentum as I'm creating the book over the next year or two. And just see if, creating a community. And on top of it, then Xander and I started shooting the shit and like, hey, we could talk about this podcast form too. And so but the segue is, so over the years, my Steam Deck only has so much space. So I do this thing, you do the gathering, but then there's the culling that I have to do every once in a while to make space for new games. And so the interesting piece is the process that I use to identify and then subsequently play/mark for deletion indie games that either I have played and didn't like or haven't gotten the time to play, and maybe I just added them. So it is very interesting. And it's also kind of how things have evolved over the last 5 years as we get to where we currently are in our incredible journey and what games we talk about. Because like when we say that this podcast is curated, like the games that come here are very different than the games I used to add and purchase 5 years ago. Because tastes have modified and changed. And, I tend to gravitate towards different genres now even than I did 5 years ago.
Oh
So,
yeah.
very interesting. So, like, first and foremost is the important piece. As you're going through Steam or any system, creating folders categories is my first thing. So I create folders and categories to adjust things. So something's in my backlog, or if something is on Steam, but requires a keyboard to play. Or like I was even doing between normal games and budget games because last episode we were talking playing a budget game, does it affect like your judgment on it? Well, I actually have, and I initially had planned to have a section for regular and a section for budget games in the book.
Mm.
Decided to not do that holistically in the end. The book actually is going to be based on genre and instead of like monetary, because the monetary changes and people always put Steam games for sale. But I initially that is a category that exists. But I have one that's called play or delete. And so every once in a while, I start to run out of space on the Steam Deck, and I like to keep things installed. The other thing is, and we mentioned this in like episode 1, is that my Steam Deck is used for smaller indie games. So it is games that are under a gigabyte. Anything that's over a gigabyte, I save because the Steam has the giant library, and I only install those on the Lenovo Legion Go on the more higher powered one because it has the capabilities to play all of those without limitations. So it plays a little bit better. But the Steam Deck, while there are compromises that are made in order for games like Grand Theft Auto or Cyberpunk to be able to play on the Steam Deck, it plays much better on a more higher powered one. So I always do it towards indie. That being said, I have like 1,000 games installed on my Steam Deck right now. And so as I go and we find new games every freaking week, I gotta make space sometimes. And so this last week, I started doing some culling, and it was very interesting the way I went about it because it's almost like the way that I do it has evolved a little bit over the years. And so first things first, I'm going off of visual on the box art, and on Steam they use these little posters, but it's like it mimics a box art. And if the box art looks different or looks like something that's off, I'll add it automatically to this. So you're thinking about it like
Yeah.
think about it from a customer sales perspective. So if your art doesn't catch me, I'm like, all right, so I haven't played this game in 3 years, 4 years. All right, put it in the play or delete. I need to play it. And then what I was using before I would go through the process of deleting the game off my Steam Deck, I then go to the Steam page and I watch the trailer, kind of like what we do, where we're evaluating on the Horizon game. And I'm like, all right, so does this genre meet my current tastes or not? And the thing is that deleting the game that you want on Steam, you can just re-download it. So I just making space. And so I realized that I'm not currently into driving games, so I've gotten rid of some of those. Shoot 'em ups, believe it or not. I'm not enjoying playing shoot 'em ups as much as I used to. Now, I say shoot 'em ups, but it's more the bullet hell type.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate of the Gradiuses and the R types, the old school arcade slash NES era. Really, really fun to do.
Yeah, I feel the same way with bullet hells. A couple of years ago, I was just really into bullet hells. I was playing them all the time, and I still love the genre, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, I've played so many of them that I'm just like it's almost like my palate's just like fatigue with bullet hells. I mean, you can only see but so many spread shots before you're just like, "All right, I kinda know where I'm getting myself into," where
Well, and that's one to piggyback off of what we did last episode. Mobile ports of cave shooters were some of my favorite games back in the day because I am not great as my thumbs get older and my reflexes get old and I get in my walker and go around the house. No, but I'm not as responsive on those games, so I can't enjoy them. But going like this, and again using mouse too, mouse and keyboard, using the mouse or using my finger on a phone screen is great. And Steam Deck and Lenovo Legion go both touchscreen. So if it incorporates touch, I typically will keep those in there too for the bullets because you can carve through the bullet paths. I'm not
Yeah.
great using because every single game, and if you play multiple, every single game has a different responsiveness because it's a different game.
Boxes, everything. Yeah.
And so, like, to me, it's almost frustrating to try to, like, figure out those nuances for every single game. So I just, like, avoid all of them, which is crazy to me because I used to love the favorite genres of all time. But me being old man gamer, um, I still love my, Spriggan, Series Senshi Spriggan on the PC Engine CD. I love that. It's like one of my favorite shoot 'em ups of all time. It's vertical, shoot 'em up, and I love that game. I go to that one or Lords of Thunder. That OEC Turbo Graphics PC Engine are like is like one of my favorites for shooters. And so I still like my classics, but they're unknown. It's like going back and playing Mario 3 or Mario or
Yeah.
Zelda Link to the Past or Super
It's
Metro.
like comfort food.
Comfort food. And whereas, like, for me, taking on new experiences in that genre isn't as palatable. The other side of the fact, though, is that the cute 'em up still tends to be fun because it's a little more forgiving. So you're playing,
Yeah.
cute 'em ups like your Parodiuses, the ones that are like anime cutesy aesthetics, and then you still get some challenge in there, but for some reason those tend to be more palatable or easily approachable.
Like the Cotton series. I freaking love Cotton. It's one of my favorite shooting series.
So I feel like I'm gonna have to get back into that genre, and then I'll re-download and play those type of games. But my genres right now, your Metroidvanias, your action platformers, Mega Mans, and then of course your Contras. Like those are all fun as hell. And then, ironically, there's one other genre that I've gotten out of because some genres I never enjoy: visual novels. I don't enjoy tactical and strategic games because I just simply don't have the time.
Yeah.
And so if I'm gonna play something, like if I want to like turn my brain off, I'm gonna play a casual puzzle game. Something that I can mess around with, like do some Sudoku, do some Picross, do something fun. But like playing a visual novel, getting through that, unless there's a true crime aesthetic to it, like there's Famicom detective series and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that's a little different if I'm in the mood, but the actual visual novel just to read through, like I'm not a fan. And then the strategic ones just don't have the time to learn it.
Yeah.
Like since Final Fantasy Tactics on the PlayStation, I really haven't played none of that. But the other genre that I've gotten out of, and it's not that I've gotten out of the genre, it's that I've gotten out of indie in this genre, is the JRPG.
Let
I cannot play too many. Again, it's because they're huge and learning them. And so, like, I'll 100% play Final or Dragon Quest 3 HD Remake because that's comfort food. I know the Dragon Quest series or playing the newest, like, Final Fantasy games because it's tried and true. But trying to play something new in that genre is something that I'm not willing to test drive. Now, if a new JRPG comes out and has critical acclaim or something, like I may jump down that rabbit hole, but it has to really engage because 100-hour games, I have 10 hours to play a month.
well,
It's crazy.
that reminds me of an indie game that I could definitely recommend. I feel like it hits all the notes with what you suggested. Have you ever played Cosmic Star Heroine?
Yeah.
That that's a really good indie JRPG. Like that is so good. It's not a long game either. It's pretty short for like JRPG standards. I think it's like what a 12-hour game. So
And that's the thing. And it's not that these games are bad. It's that from my own personal tastes right now, I don't have the capacity to play them all. So I kind of move them off to the side. Because, I mean, otherwise, I'm going to bust open a JRPG on my deck roulette. I'm going to play it. And then after about an hour, I'm going to be like, all right, well, I got to go to bed or I got to go work on something, a project or something. And then I'm like, the next time it's like, all right, so I see this JRPG here. Well, it's got another 1,000 hours to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I work on it once a week for the rest of my life, or do I play something that I can just, because if I get sucked in, I'll play something, and then that'd be what I'm obsessed with, and all my projects get pushed to the wayside. Y'all gotta wait for your books a lot longer, maybe an episode or two get behind. Like it's like, I got engrossed in this game.
That's gonna be me with Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza that comes out towards the end of February. So I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row because yeah, that's one of my big games. But talking about big games, there's some games on the horizon that we need to get into. And the first one I want to talk about is it was something I wasn't expecting to be on the list. I'm like, oh, okay. But Hellskate.
Helskate. You didn't expect it to be on this. Why didn't you expect Helskate?
I was not expecting like a Tony Hawk like skating indie game. Like I was like that kind of threw me off. I was like, that's really cool.
3D looks, and I mean it's Helskate, so it's like all demons, like Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Tony Hawk, and it was just released. Like when I say just released, I mean like days of the time of this recording. Like it just was released, and it has recent reviews are mixed, even though very positive over the lifetime of the pre-launch timeframe. Because a lot of games on Steam get like a pre-launch window where they have people playing it and enjoying it, early adopters. But like now, currently, it's mixed, which is interesting. The game looks ridiculous though. Like you're grinding off of like dragons and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and you had games like Grind Sessions and on Jet Grind Radio, that mid 2000s skating kind of pop culture is like all over it. I'm like, man, that's really, really cool. I like the art style too, it's
Well, and it's like so crazy that you're even going to a tattoo shop to get tattooed by a demon to change your character's appearance. Like who does that in a game in 2025? I love it. It's so wild. Like, you know what I mean? 'Cause you're skating your way through the demon world, the Hellscape, classic arcade style skate. Jeez. And there's you die apparently in the game too. So you fight,
you did.
and you upgrade and you repeat. So it is a roguelike as well.
Oh, wow.
Unique
Wow.
trait power and unique builds for each run. Your inked up sick tattoos permanently upgrade your abilities. So your tattoos are permanent upgrades.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty cool.
Dude, this is pretty damn deep. And there's
how much?
boss fights.
How much is it?
Yes. I have to. Mine doesn't show too often. Oh, so it is retail $25, $24.99. Currently on sale at the time of this recording, about 30% off. So there's a special promotion for the month of January 2025. But I'm sure that they'll do other sales throughout because they're doing cool stuff with it. And it's still in early access, mind you. It still says it's early access right now.
Oh wow. So yeah. I mean, from what I hear, I mean, because I was just expecting it to be like a Tony Hawk, clone, but boss fights and all that stuff. I mean, it's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, because it says it's still in early access, but then it said early access started in February 2024, and now the release date happened. So I don't know if it automatically updates or requires them to manually update it. But either way, I mean, this game supports controllers. Looks fun as hell.
Steam Deck verified.
Looks cool, man. There's some mixed reviews, but I mean, the thing is, the most helpful, not recommended review since we did that last episode. So here's one that mentions the alley, so I got to talk about it. I really wanted to love the game. Everything about it is right up my alley, but its current state, the game is not there. It is far from there. I really hope the devs stick with the game because it has some incredible potential, but they got a lot of work ahead of them. But it says it doesn't say exactly why, and so they put the good and then the meh.
Oh, the meh.
The meh. So the good is the art direction. Very original idea, mixing roguelikes and arcade skating games. Level design is incredible, and there's a few new lines to find every time you go back through an area. So like vocal lines, I assume is what that means. And the soundtrack is full of bangers, so it's a great soundtrack. So the meh, minor bugs, like infinite amount of minor bugs. Every time I did a new run, ran into a bug. Now, if it's coming out of early access,
Yeah.
it's they're gonna iron out stuff, and going into early access is a thing. Now, this was reviewed December before it was out of early access, so maybe they fixed infinite bugs, probably not, but current bosses hitbox are worse than Dark Souls 2.
Oh,
And let's just jump off the edge of the arena and die.
oh no.
It took me around 3.5 hours to complete all available content. Making it feel like a demo more than early access. Interesting. Combos will drop randomly. Input from controller fields off. Lock on doesn't do much of anything. And sound design for weapons and combat feels weak and unsatisfied. So, it seems like they played it thoroughly. And the thing is, there's on top of that though, these are the recent ones that are not recommended. But then there's a ton here that just say I've enjoyed the early access and see the promise. So, if the developers are intent on continuing and completing the game, I feel like it's a really cool one. At $25, even on sale with 30% off later. I would wait a little bit until it's like fully fleshed out. Again, going back, if it was a budget title, support it all day. At $25, that's to me that's like full price game, indie game.
Yeah.
I would say hold off until you get the next version out there, the remainder version. But from our visual perspective, looking at it, looks cool as hell. Looks dope.
Yeah.
Um,
Looks really, really cool. Another really cool game, it just came out this year that we were going to talk about is Into the Emberlands.
Into the Emberlands, yeah. And this one is very positive all over. Developed by Tiny Roar and also released a few days ago. Um, this one is a cozy game.
Oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's got like this like top down perspective that I really thought was cool. And at first, when I first looked at it, I thought it was like a party game at first when I saw it because it looked almost like Mario Party for a second, the way the
Nah.
panels were, and I'm like, what is this? But no, yeah, it's more of like a top down sort of adventure. Like,
Yeah. You know what's weird though? This is like one of the only first times I've seen cozy, wholesome, casual, and roguelike in the same like categories.
yeah,
So I assume that there is some type of progression system. But if it's just a cozy exploration game, like what progression actually is there needed? Because now the one thing is, for these type of cozy games, the creation is not something that I typically like to play. I
yeah,
don't like sandbox create anything all the time because again, the time sink, like there's infinite to do. Um, like a Minecraft where you play it in creative mode. Like
yeah.
you will do that with my daughter all day. Like if she wants to play, I will. But for my own personal game time, like again, like I like to play in fragmented aspects and palatable, something that and either it completely engulfs my life or I can play it in small playthroughs and continue to enjoy the game.
Yeah, that's kinda like how I was with Animal Crossing when it came out. Like, I played the ever living snot out of it for, like, 2 months, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm done." I'd, like, pick it up every once in a while, like, "Ah, I'm done," you know? That's the only thing about like cozy games that I always get kind of worried about is like I want to dive into more cozy games. I just don't want to like get it and not really click with it like something I can play for a long period of time.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is that apparently you lay the foundation and everything that you build, um, adds to the roguelike stuff. So every time you start a new one, the stuff you build gives you new abilities. But here's the thing, and this goes back to your thing, your quote. How about for $5?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, dude. It's like I'm looking
Like,
at.
is it worth the gamble for $5? It might
I
be.
mean, if it's $5 and it just gives me like some sort of like serotonin feeling of some sort, be like, oh yeah, this little sense of accomplishment. Yeah, I'd say it's worth it. But this next game is right up my alley. I saw this one and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, because this is a genre I kind of want to dive more into, and that's the whole boomer shooter.
Uh-huh.
This game
Very,
grunts,
very,
well,
very,
cruel.
very cruel. Not grunt. Grunts is hilarious. And now this one though, like, does look like classic Quake Doom Hexen. Like like looks like it's pragmatically made to look like the classic PC style game, which is interesting. But it has roguelikes in it. So this is the episode of the roguelikes. And I think that that has been something that hasn't been uh tackled enough is the roguelike boomer, because like you get like these little choices of how you want to upgrade, and then I can never complain when you get Ash from Evil Dead boomstick and a chainsaw at
Yeah.
the same time. Like
I
it's
I just
fun.
saw it. I'm like, that like I said, because we've touched base on a couple of games in this genre last couple episodes, and I'm like, I never really played a whole lot of like boomer shooters. I played them like casually because I didn't have a computer and I didn't really like playing them on console. So now I'm like, I'm kind of experiencing some of those games for the first time, that little genre, and I'm like, hey, this is really really cool. So
They're awesome. I grew up
so
on
funny.
them, and like I couldn't run them, but I would go to like my cousin Kyle's house, and we would play the hell out of Doom, and just enjoying all the different episodes of that, and then jumping down the rabbit hole of Hexen and Heretic and Blood and Redneck Rampage and Postal and all the badass boomer shooters. And this one though, as classic like callbacks to those, which I think is badass with the pop culture of an Evil Dead and all those pieces coming in. Like it just looks like hits everything in the 90s that you want out of a classic boomer shooter. And so if it plays well, this could be one. The other thing is if it offers, because it has single player made by somebody just released, but does it have online? 'Cause we can play online together. 'Cause you can play original Doom online together, but like you play this online because this looks gory as hell. The enemies look cool as shit, chainsaw guys and everything. So like
Yeah, and
this is
it's got that classic, PC first person shooter vibe, you know.
well, the stuff that's gonna make it challenging, procedural generation. So in other words, every run is different. But it's not like your Doom where you can memorize the maps. I mean, it's a roguelike, but also permadeath.
Ooh.
So that would be interesting. Because the thing is, I'm not sure if the permadeath is just a tag to show that it's a roguelike, and then, but I hope that there are permanent upgrades to allow you to progress.
Yeah.
If you start from zero every single time and the map changes every single time and you don't get any stronger, because I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the roguelike where it's roguelike with your skills.
Yeah.
I want your skills combined with a subtle amount. It's kind of what Hades does, is skills with a subtle amount of power upgrades to make you a little more powerful little by little. And eventually you overcome them. Hell, Elden Ring did that freaking perfectly. You first go after the very first boss, not the very beginning, but like the very first major boss in Elden Ring, and he kicks the shit out of you. You go around, explore a little bit, get some upgrades, and all of a sudden he's easy because you've powered up beyond his
Yes, it's always like
you've gone better with your skill too, so you know to parry better and dodge better and all that. So it's like it's that combo that I like. So the roguelike has to do it right. So hopefully that's just a tag. This is one that I absolutely plan on playing though.
yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely wanting to check that one out. And this last game, I was reading the show notes, and the game that you were comparing it to was a totally different game than what I was imagining.
Oh yeah. Now I didn't compare it to a game. I compared it to a toy line.
Oh. Oh yeah, I remember those from like Fisher Price.
So if the game that we're talking about is called Guts and Grunts. And I said that the artwork looked like the characters from Barnyard Commandos because that was like the sheeps and the rams versus the pigs. And there is this guns and grunts. There's this pig on the front, and it looks like the rounded pig of the toys that I got. But I got them at like the dollar store when they were on clearance back as a kid. So I got the whole set for like $1 a character. So I spent like less than $10, I think, and I got all the different Barnyard Commandos back in the day. But it says inspired by games like Contra and Turrican.
Which I love that. Turrican. Not enough people talk about Turrican. Turrican's really really good. That's why I loved Gunlord X. That's why I love that game so much. Another honorable mention of an indie we mentioned.
So to you, what is the difference between a Contra and a Turrican? On the spot.
The movement.
The movement?
Yeah, the movement's totally different. Turrican's like a little bit more like when they jump, they jump kind of like this, where like in Contra, like they kind of bend the knees,
Mm. From my perspective, Contra's a little more horizontally scrolling level by level design, whereas Turrican has more of level that you explore around and key everything, and you can like move around. You can go back a little bit. Whereas Contra like pushing forward. You push forward and you don't look back. That's what Iron Meat does well too, the Era version. But Turrican, you can. It's not a Metroidvania because you're not doing the whole world with biomes, but you're doing like level by level exploration, and you go through the pieces. That's to me 16-bit era level design because there's a lot of 16-bit games, not necessarily shooters, but 16-bit games that do a level based exploration. Earthworm Jim did that, but it also had multiple genres too. I mean, hell, your Kid Chameleon does that, but then like Turrican does that, but it plays like freaking Contra. And so if this game has like level-based design with a little more horizontal push forward mentality and a cartoon aesthetic that looks like 90s cartoons and in action figures, I mean toy lines, like this seems badass.
The game that I was thinking about though, this is totally left field because I read it and I'm like Barnyard Commandos. I'm like, wasn't that game on like PS2? That remind you, this is like before I looked at the trailer. I was just reading the show notes. I thought it was like this PS2 game. I don't know if you remember the name. It was like Farm something and another, and it was like a first person shooter, and the cows would like squirt their milk all over each other. Uh, you know this game I'm talking about, right?
I don't know what your weekends are made up of, Xander, but I think we need some footage of this, some proof of what your milk squirting weekends with PS2s are. I don't know what's going on, but we're we're all intrigued with this point, I guess. I don't.
I can't remember the name of the game, but yeah, it's a weird game. But yeah, you had different cows that you played as, and it was like time splitters, but with cows and lactation. But anyway,
I'm sure somebody in the comments is gonna be like, "It's this game, Xander. You're crazy." Well, that game was, and Guts and Grunts was released about a year ago. Looks cool as shit though. And the last two games, Guts and Grunts and Curl, both $10 games. So right in that, the teeter of awesomeness. Maybe like this one looks like it has pretty decent reviews, but it's only 6 reviews because again, it is under the radar. And this game looks badass. So is why we do what we do. It's why we do what we do.
I definitely want to check
Right.
it out.
So we doing ending this little micro short episode with our executive producers that support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Hagen's Alley. Akriloth is our first one. Make sure you support him on YouTube on his channel.
Indeed, and a Burner Turner, another the burner.
I mean, so when you turn, does it burn? That's and of course, David Isherwood supporting us from over the pond. So I don't think we talked about that. Or so you supporter. Really cool. Thank you everybody for supporting. And remember, you too can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Hagen's Alley. There's a free tier, but there's also paid tiers with lots of cool stuff. Our executive producers, besides for getting a shout out, do get an exclusive wooden bookcase I'm going to make specially for the Patreon supporters. So they're going to be the only ones getting this version of it. And I even said, vote on, I'll do one for a historical book that y'all have that never had a wood book cover. Like, I'll make something cool for everyone. And so yeah, I'm going to be posting cool items for all the Patreon stuff just for as a thank you to the people that support. And every quarter I'm going to be releasing and pushing out lots of cool items because I make stuff all the time. I'm like always making cool things. And I think we alluded to it on a previous episode. Bought the wife an X tool, which is an engraver. So like we have been coming up with some crazy stuff that we're going to be making, and Patreon supporters are going to get copies of some of the cool ass stuff we're making.
Indeed. And to just join is absolutely free. And it's the one-stop shop if you're like wondering what Jeff's new adventure is, because it covers everything. That's one of the things that I really like about the Patreon personally, because you're always doing something new, Jeff. It's like there was a time we would talk to each other, like catching up, and you'd already have like 5 or 6 other projects going on. So
now they talk at least weekly about the podcast, and I have 5 or 6 new things every week.
Exactly. But anyway, guys, as always, we want to thank you for listening. Thank you again for all the support. As always, happy gaming and support indie.
I could get the fireworks to go off.
Oh, you went over here.
Thumbs up. Thank you everyone for checking out this episode of Indie Credible. There we go. Make sure you follow us. We have lots of stuff going on every week on YouTube on Fridays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you check out Indie Gaming Gems. That is the structured review/preview series about 10 indie games you may not have heard of.
And you can check me out, Xander Scullion, across the board. I kept it real simple for you guys. You can check me out on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And, on my channel, I cover a little series called Play and Tell, where I talk about games I've been playing, leave little short impressions, mini reviews, and most importantly, when you walk away, you have something new to play. So you can check out my Play and Tell series. I also have some reviews that I put out every once in a while, and a live stream, which I'm really trying to commit and have a dedicated schedule. So that's more important that you hit the bell so you're notified whenever I'm live, because you never know. I might be live right now.
Yes, he's always live. Oh, always. And then, of course, I have all of my books at hagensalley.com. You can check out. I've had like dozens of books published. I try to upload and keep things up to date with the latest reviews, the latest books up there, but they have to be in hand. So if you follow me on social medias, you'll see when the newest Kickstarter goes live, the backer kit goes live, the newest crowdfunding thing is going live. And as soon as you become a backer, there's updates that go out all the time. So we're always working on new books and new series and new things. Of course, upcoming, coordinated with this podcast, will be Indie Gaming Gems, which will be coming out next year sometime. It'll be fun time here for us in the indie gaming world.